Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of Anchor Watch. Now, I have prided myself on bringing you people who are selfless, who are about service before themselves. And the hottest name in politics right now, up there in the great state of Maine, Mr. Graham Platner. First, Graham, I just want to say thank you for joining us.
Oh man, Bobby, it's a real pleasure, man. I really appreciate you inviting me on.
Man, I got to ask the first question. You've done your duty to this country. 98% of us don't serve, whatever. You've already served. Why are you doing this? Because you're coming out of nowhere and resonating.
Yeah, I mean, the big reason is that I see service to your community, to your country, as a duty, a thing that you're supposed to do. And while I served as a Marine, and I served as a soldier in the United States Army, in the infantry in both. I'm still seeing my community struggle, and I'm still seeing my state struggle, and I'm seeing neighbors and friends of mine work harder and longer for less, and watching their lives continue to get more difficult. And there is just a point where, I wasn't seeking this out. I was very happy being an oyster farmer and living a very small life in my hometown. But there was an opportunity that arose. And I very much come at this from the perspective of not everybody gets the chance to do something big about what they believe in. And when that opportunity falls into your life, you got two choices. You can not do it, and you can go through the rest of your life thinking that maybe you had a chance to do something, or you take it. And you take the risk, and you jump into whatever this whole thing has been. But you do it because it's the right thing to do. And you do it because, for me, I did it because my wife and I have spent a long time watching people we love struggle harder and harder. And all of a sudden we had a chance to do something about it. And it felt like it wasn't really a choice. It wasn't really an option. We had to say yes. And so we did.
Wow. So that's quite a big step, but you took smaller steps before that. You served, like you said, in both the Army and the Marine Corps. What made you do that to start this whole thing off? What led you to give of yourself to your country?
I'll be up front. I wanted to be a soldier since I was about 2. I played with G.I. Joes as a kid. I was a big military history buff. I did Civil War reenacting. I was interested in it from as long as I can remember. But also with that kind of experience as a boy, I developed a deep love of country and a feeling of required service, that it was important for me to take time in my life and put it into something that was bigger than myself. I'll be upfront.
Yeah.
I wanted an adventure. I grew up in
Right.
Maine. I grew up in a small town. Things felt very kind of small and provincial, and I wanted to go see the world, and I wanted to have an adventure. And what's more adventurous than the Marine Corps infantry in wartime? So that's where I put myself.
Right. And I'm glad you brought that up because, the adventurism is one thing, but the cost of service is another. Now, you went through a lot. It's been well documented. People would say it's even controversial, but for those of us who've actually put the uniform on, we know the mental struggle, especially when you're getting out. I think it's criminally underreported. It's criminally not looked at, where you go from an environment where you're surrounded by people who are all about giving. And now you're dropped off in society where it's like, hey, I got mine, you better get yours. And like I said, I retired as an '05, a commander, and it was a struggle my first year out of uniform. Take me on the journey back. I don't care about the tattoos and the Reddit stuff. That's been addressed. How did you get back?
It took me a long time. I got out in 12, and between 2012 and really 2017, I struggled with the exact same thing you just talked about. I felt isolated. I felt alone. I went from a world in which I was like a competent infantryman whose job it was to take care of the younger infantrymen below me. It had nothing to do with me in many ways. My competence and my skill set was there to make sure that my younger infantrymen could stay alive and could be effective in their mission. And then all of a sudden, you go from this world where everything's about the team, everything's about the group, everything's communal. You have this intense feeling of loyalty and support to suddenly just being on your own in a society that, as you just mentioned, doesn't really prioritize community in any way. It's a society that is all about, like, you got to get yours, you got to kind of get ahead of other people. And so you're dealing with all of that. You're losing the support network, you're losing the structure. I mean, that was a big one for me. I went from a very structured world to a world where I was just in charge of my own life. And I'm like, I wasn't really prepared for that. When you make decisions, you're the only one that suffers. And it's, in some ways, when you're living in a space in which you feel very alienated and alone, you start to, you don't care if you're the only one that suffers. You're like, well, what does it matter? It's just like you lose this feeling of, I mean, at least I did. I lost this feeling that anything really mattered.
Yeah, exactly.
And for about 5 years, I kind of lived in that hole. And the thing that got me back was rebuilding actual community in the real world. The thing that got me back is I moved home. I moved back to Maine. I moved back to the town that I grew up in. I got involved in shellfish farming, which is a very communal industry. There's a lot of cooperation. Everybody kind of talks to each other. There's a real feeling of community around that. There's a lot of like regulatory stuff where you're like interacting with other farmers, interacting with other people in the state. And then I also just got very involved in my small town because I grew up in a town of about 1,000 people. And I got involved. I was on the planning board. I became the harbor master. I got involved in a lot of community organizing work, kind of just showing up for neighbors who were struggling. And it wasn't on purpose, but it was through that direct connection with people that all of my cynicism and anger, all of my feelings of isolation and loneliness, it all disappeared. And part of it came with going to therapy and getting support from the VA. There's no question that had a lot to do with it. But that combined with becoming engaged with people in my community again, those two things, I mean, that was it. That did all the work.
I'm glad you brought up the VA. You've been very vocal about what's happening to the VA, because you literally just showed us how you lived through that transition. What concerns you most looking at the VA and what's happening right now?
I mean, I was talking to somebody at the VA just a few weeks ago because I was up there for an appointment, and the staff cuts, major budget cuts, and then also they're using they're taking things that used to be job positions and turning them into billets so they can get away with saying that we're not getting rid of these positions. But in reality, something that used to be filled by like a provider is now being filled by like a support staff person. And everybody knows that the whole point is that the job is no longer being done. But it's a trick.
Yes.
So that is terrifying to me because I've had a great experience with the VA up here in Maine. Only in the last year has my level of care begun to diminish. And it's very obviously because they're understrength and they're underfunded. And they know it. I mean, the VA staff they know what's going on. And that terrifies me because honestly, the VA was not in a position to have resources decreased. We needed to be increasing resources and manpower to the VA as it was. And so to watch that happen in real time as the Trump administration, as Republican policies strip it of funding and manpower, it's incredible. To say it's concerning is an understatement. It's the future of veteran care is at risk right now. And that is a terrifying prospect.
It's interesting. We served during a time where, people forget maybe, America's longest war, 9/11 to 2021, easily, right? So you got a large number of veterans that did repeat deployments, the wear and tear, and President Trump came into office the second time, famously saying no more forever wars. Well, We got something going on in Iran right now, brother, that I'm just like, what are we doing? I've been very vocal about it. When you see what's happening, because you win this thing, you're going to be in the Senate and they deal with foreign policy in
That's right.
Congress. What are your thoughts about what you're seeing right now?
Well, one, it's just utterly. To say it's disappointing is an understatement. It's disgusting. Is what it is. I mean, and nobody wants this, by the way. Like the American people are sick and tired of forever wars. They're sick and tired of expending blood and treasure in conflicts that we can be very honest do not do anything to improve the lives of the everyday American. It doesn't make us safer. It doesn't make us wealthier. It doesn't help us as a society. We just dump money into buckets of blood, and it just makes people at Raytheon or Lockheed Martin a lot wealthier. But we put all of the cost on the shoulders of the young men and women we send off to do this stuff, and frankly, on the shoulders of the civilian populations that we
Yes.
then inflict violence upon. And
I was about to say, Graham, that's the point. That's the last point I want to hit because I know you got time. Explain this to me. What is the average Mainer sitting around the coffee table, sitting at the kitchen table? What are they talking about? Because I know down here in Georgia, we're talking about affordability and just basics. All of this is happening internationally, is affecting us directly in our homes. What are they saying of?
they're saying, why the hell is my gas $4.60 a gallon? That's, I mean, and the answer, and they, by the way, know the answer. The answer is the
Yes.
Straits of Hormuz are closed. That's
Yes.
the answer. And it's closed because Donald Trump started a pointless fucking war. Sorry, I shouldn't swear, but like,
No. Hey, shoot.
Nice, man.
It's fine.
They're also asking, why did the hospital close? They're asking, why do we see schools closing around the state? They're asking,
Bill.
why are young people leaving our communities because they can't afford a home? And the frustrating thing about all of this is I guarantee in Georgia, it's the exact same conversation.
It is. It really
And the
is.
reason it's the same conversation is it's a systemic problem.
Yes.
It's a systemic problem because
Yes.
as a nation, we have prioritized things like foreign wars over prioritizing things like building housing or creating an energy infrastructure that is going to allow Americans to be productive because we're now creating energy in a national way that is not using fossil fuels as the base. Right?
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
like this is the working people across the country are all talking about the exact same things. And the answers to them are not starting other stupid wars.
Yeah.
The answers to them are frankly raising taxes on billionaires and corporations and investing that money into our communities. That's the answer. It's like it's a foreign policy that is not built around expending trillions on war, but a foreign policy built around actual diplomacy and building relationships around the world. That's good
Yeah.
for the American people. But starting wars that only enrich a few, frankly, defense companies, that's not good for the American people, and everybody knows it. And I think that's also, but for decades now, even before Donald Trump, we had a political system that has in many ways been selling out the working people of this country
Very much
over
so.
and over and over again. And we've
Very much
reached
so.
the point where it's so blatant and clear that it's happening in every single corner of the country, and everywhere it's happening, it is exactly the same.
Yeah. I think you nailed it. Now, granted, it happens to different degrees. Minority groups, the impoverished, it's hitting them harder, but it's hitting everybody. And I just watched Jeff Bezos this morning on CNBC talk about you can double my taxes and it won't make a difference to what the teacher in Queens is dealing with. And I literally just sat there with my head cocked to the side. I'm like, he's saying this and he believes this, or he expects us to be stupid enough to believe that. It's the arrogance of which our government is operating right now, internationally, domestically. It's terrifying. I'll let you. Go ahead.
I'll tell you what, Jeff. We should. If that's true, then why don't we just give it a try? Let's take Jeff Bezos up on the bet. Sure, man, but there's only one way we're going to find out. So I can tell you one thing: raising taxes on Jeff Bezos isn't going to make his life any harder.
Right.
So why not give it a
Exactly.
shot? Because if it does increase the living standard of that teacher in Queens, it was definitely worth it. Because it sure as hell isn't going to decrease the living standard of Jeff Bezos.
Right. Right. Listen, Graham, we could talk all day, and we got to have you back as this campaign continues. I'm very happy to see that you're advancing. I'm thankful for your journey, but most importantly, thank you for sharing it and sharing your thoughts. You've come out of nowhere, and everybody seems to be shocked, but it's amazing what happens when, like you said, common sense is applied to a lot of these things and how it resonates with people who also have common sense. So I just want to thank you for taking the time. Any last words you have for this interview?
I mean, I will say and I hate to do this part, but if anybody likes what they hear, we need help. So,
Yep.
GrahamForSenate.com, we're up against billionaires. We're up against the Republican Party, and they're going to dump a ton of money on us. So if anybody's willing to pitch in, we can certainly use it. So.
Definitely, and we'll make sure that that's linked in the in the notes here because you're right. You've spooked a lot of people. You spooked a lot of people, and that's a good thing.
The political establishment is not happy about what's happening up here in Maine, and we want to continue to make them not happy. So,
Well, to quote a famous Maine senator, I am concerned about these developments. We'll see what happens. Thanks, Graham. I really appreciate it.
thanks, Bobby. I really appreciate it, man.
Bye bye.